Welcome to Making a Stick Vase Part 2. Part 1 ended with making the working top the bottom. This will be important when chucking the vase on the lathe. Now that the orientation has been decided, I sand the pieces so that the top and bottom surfaces are flat and parallel. I use a stationary sander instead of a planer as I have more control over the thickness of the wood. I can use increments of 1/128th of an inch or less. Another advantage of the sander over a planer is that there is no chip out. I use my table saw as a jointer. By taking off a very fine amount, not more than half the width of the saw blade, I can get a very respectable joint. You will notice that as I cut each piece, especially on the second pass, I have flipped it over. By doing this, I can get a tight joint, even if my saw blade is not a perfect right angle. Although you can't see it, I am wearing full face protection, dust mask, and hearing protection. I do not use a saw guard as I find it very important to see the saw blade. I push the sticks through the saw using an ice pick. The pressure on the pick is toward the point where the fence and the table meet. I check each piece to make sure that it has a tight joint with its neighbor. I continue with this process until all the sticks have been jointed. The next step is to glue the sticks together. I put them in the clamps and carefully align them. Sometimes I will draw a line across the surface of the sticks to use for alignment when I am gluing. If I do this, I am careful to put the line only on the surface of the wood. Next, I bring the clamp ends up to a thumb's thickness from the last stick. I mark 2 X's on each side of the joint between the middle sticks. This is to remind me that I do not want to glue this joint. I slide all but the first stick towards the back of the clamps. I pull out the second stick and apply glue to the surface that will abut the first stick. I apply the glue to each joint in turn, being careful not to put glue on the center joint. I apply my glue using old toothbrushes. They spread the glue evenly and quickly. They can be reused almost indefinitely. When I am satisfied that everything is correct, I tighten the clamps and leave it to dry for at least 2 hours, but usually overnight. Just before leaving the glue up, I take an old toothbrush and dip it in water and wash away any excess glue that has come up between the pieces. This reduces the cleanup at the next stage. I always mark the center by drawing a few lines across the end grain, and then putting 2 arrows, one on each piece, pointing upwards to show the final top surface. I remove each piece from the clamps, turn it over, and remove the excess glue with a scraper and a chisel. It is important to remove the visible excess glue, as this will also be visible in the finished piece if it is not removed. When I am satisfied that all extraneous glue has been removed, I proceed to sand the pieces once more to ensure that my two surfaces are flat and parallel. This marks the end of the second part of making a stick vase.